Stop, don't sign that. The words didn't come from the attorneys, or the executives seated in their tailored suits, or the polished voice on the video screen waiting to approve a $250 million deal. They came from a 12-year-old girl standing near the wall, like she was part of the decor, all pale curls and quiet eyes, clutching the strap of a small backpack as if it could keep her from being noticed. The red timer on the conference display blinked 0:45, counting down the final seconds before the international investors would disconnect and take their money elsewhere. Ethan Caldwell, oil magnate, self-made billionaire, the kind of man whose name was etched into a glass tower downtown, held a pin above the signature line. The nib hovered a fraction of an inch over paper, so thick it felt like a promise. Around him, the boardroom gleamed like a museum, marble veined like frozen lightning, leather chairs that sighed when you moved, and the faint, clean scent of lemon polish rising from the long table as if someone had scrubbed the air itself. "We're ready, Mr. Caldwell," Victor Sloan said, smooth as satin, sliding the final page forward with 2 fingers. His smile was practiced, the kind that belonged to a man who had never had to ask for anything twice. On the wall, a grid of faces watched from a video call, men in crisp white shirts, women in immaculate blazers, expressions tight with impatience. The deal would secure overseas drilling rights, expand Caldwell Petroleum into a new hemisphere, and make tomorrow's headlines sing Ethan's name like a hymn. "This is standard," Daniel Klein, the company's general counsel, murmured, already reaching for the document as if the last step was just a formality. "Boilerplate in Arabic," he added, as though the language itself were nothing more than decoration. A soft laugh came from Marissa Cole, Ethan's executive assistant, who sat closest to the door with a tablet and a look that could slice glass. "We're really doing this with an audience?" she said under her breath, eyes flicking toward the girl. "Grace," she added louder, without looking up, "your kid can wait outside." Grace Harper, the head of housekeeping, shoulders squared from years of trying not to take up space, stood beside her daughter with hands that smelled faintly of soap and hard work. She didn't speak. She just tightened her fingers around Lily's wrist, a silent warning. That said, "Not here, not now, don't give them a reason." Lily swallowed. She could feel every stare in the room like a spotlight searching for a flaw. She wasn't supposed to be in this glass cathedral of money and decisions. She was only here because her mom's shift ran long, because the office was too far to send her home alone, because sometimes the world of people who clean is forced to brush against the world of people who own. Ethan didn't even look at her. His gaze was locked on the signature line, on the timer, on the faces waiting beyond the screen. "We have 45 seconds," he said, voice calm in the way storms can be calm right before they break. Victor leaned in, friendly, insistent. "Sign, and you'll have the rights by Monday." Imagine the stock jump. Imagine the legacy. Lily's eyes drifted to the Arabic paragraph at the bottom. Just a few lines, printed smaller than the English, placed where most people would never bother to read. But Lily read it. Not like a child sounding out letters, like someone recognizing a pattern, like someone hearing a wrong note in a song. One phrase wasn't just unusual. It was impossible in a legitimate contract. It wasn't permission. It was surrender. Her heart tapped against her ribs like it wanted out. She heard her mother's breathing hitch, felt the tremor in Grace's grip. And still, Lily stepped forward as if pulled by something stronger than fear. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, and her voice wasn't loud, but it landed anyway, clean and clear. Marissa's eyebrows rose, offended on behalf of the room. Daniel gave a thin, dismissive smile. Victor's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. Lily pointed to the Arabic line with one small finger. "That sentence," she said, "doesn't say what you think it says." Ethan finally turned, irritation flickering across his face, until Lily looked up at him and, in flawless Arabic, spoke a single, precise clause that made Victor's smile stiffen at the edges. The timer blinked 0:23. For a moment, the room forgot how to breathe. The red digits kept blinking, but time felt syrup-thick, pooling on the marble table. Ethan Caldwell stared at Lily as if she had just spoken from inside the paper itself. Victor Sloan's smile stayed on his face, yet it looked borrowed now, like a mask that did not fit. Daniel Klein let out a quick, uneasy chuckle that died in his throat, and Marissa Cole's pen stopped moving above her tablet, frozen mid-note. On the video wall, one of the investors leaned closer to the camera, eyes narrowing with the kind of focus money brings when it senses danger. Ethan's hand remained suspended over the signature line, the pen still a fraction of an inch from sealing a $250 million promise. "Say it again," Ethan said, voice low, controlled, the way a man speaks when he is trying not to show the room that something has shifted under his feet. Lily's fingers trembled, but her gaze did not. She pointed again, smaller than everyone at the table and somehow heavier than the whole meeting. "That clause," she said, choosing her words carefully. "It is not boilerplate. It is a transfer." Victor let out a soft laugh, warm as a lobby chandelier. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, spreading his hands. "Children repeat things they hear. The Arabic is formal. It is meant to look impressive. We are on a clock." The timer blinked 0:19. Lily did not look at him. She looked at Ethan. "It says you authorize an immediate assignment," she continued. "Not after delivery, not after verification. Immediate. Today." And it uses the wrong legal phrase. It is like writing a wedding vow inside a deed. Daniel's jaw tightened. "That is enough," Marissa snapped, finally finding her voice. "Grace, you need to take her out." Grace Harper's grip on Lily's wrist tightened, not angry, just terrified. This building fed their rent. One complaint could end her job before her next paycheck cleared. Grace's eyes pleaded with her daughter to disappear, to become quiet again, to be safe. But Lily had been quiet her whole life in places like this. Quiet in elevator corners. Quiet beside supply closets. Quiet in hallways where people spoke around her like she was a coat rack. Quiet enough that she learned how powerful people talked when they forgot someone small was listening. Because the truth was, Lily did not learn Arabic in a classroom. She learned it the way some children learn storms, by watching the sky and memorizing every change in the wind. She learned it in the Caldwell building after school, sitting on a folded towel in a janitor's alcove with her homework balanced on her knees, while her mother polished glass that never seemed to smudge. She learned it from the international news playing softly in an executive lounge, from a satellite channel left on because no one bothered to turn it off, from a podcast she borrowed through a free library app on a second-hand phone with a cracked corner. She wrote vocabulary on scrap paper cut from discarded meeting agendas. She practiced sounds and whispers so her mother would not worry. She memorized the difference between words that looked alike but meant opposite things, the way a single letter could turn permission into surrender. And sometimes, when Grace cleaned the private conference rooms after hours, Lily would find printouts like this one in the trash, pages of foreign language contracts tossed aside as if they were decorative napkins. Lily would take them home, smooth the creases, and translate them line by line at the kitchen table under a flickering light, because something in her could not stand the idea of words being used like traps. Back in the boardroom, the investors on the screen began murmuring among themselves, their voices muffled but urgent. Ethan's eyes flicked to the Arabic line again, then to Victor, then back to Lily. The timer blinked 0:12. Ethan set the pen down, slow and deliberate, as if placing a loaded secret on the table. "Bring the contract here," he said to Lily, and for the first time all morning, Victor Sloan stopped smiling. Lily stepped forward on shoes that were too quiet for a room this expensive, crossing 20 feet of marble that made even grown men feel small. The leather chairs, the glowing screen, the polished steel accents, all of it seemed designed to remind her she did not belong here, yet she walked as if the floor were her own. Grace Harper started to move after her, instinctively trying to pull her back into the safety of invisibility, but Ethan Caldwell lifted one hand, not looking at Grace, not looking at Marissa, only looking at the paper like it had suddenly become the most dangerous object in the building. "Let her," he said. The timer blinked 0:10, and the investors' faces on the wall tightened with impatience. Victor Sloan leaned back with a soft exhale, as if this were an amusing detour. "Mr. Caldwell," Victor said, tone friendly but edged, "you are letting a child derail a signed agreement in front of your partners." Daniel Klein's fingers tapped once on the table, a nervous habit pretending to be confidence. "We can review language later," Daniel said. "Right now we need the signature." Marissa Cole's eyes flashed, the kind of look that had shut down countless conversations with a single glance. "This is a board meeting," she said to Lily, each word clipped. "You are not authorized." "Marissa," Ethan said, and the name landed like a door locking. Marissa went still. Lily reached the table and, with careful hands, slid the contract toward Ethan. Her fingertips barely touched the paper, as if she feared it might stain her. Ethan pulled the page closer, the pen now set aside, and his gaze moved to the Arabic clause. For the first time, the room watched him read instead of watching him decide. The silence was so clean it felt scrubbed. Lily did not look at the investors on the screen. She did not look at Victor, whose smile was beginning to strain. She looked only at the words. "Mr. Caldwell," Lily said, voice steady now that the moment had started. "The English says you retain control until conditions are met. The Arabic says something else entirely." Ethan's eyes lifted. "Show me," he said. Lily pointed to a single phrase, then another, mapping the sentence like a route on a road that only she could see. "This part is written like a formal introduction," she explained. "But the legal phrase here is wrong for a partnership. It is the phrase used for assigning ownership, like handing over a title. And the timing word right here means immediate. Not after inspection, not after approval, not after anything. Immediate." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. He leaned forward, squinting, trying to force the foreign script to obey him. "You are interpreting," he said, and it sounded more like a plea than a challenge. Lily nodded once. "Yes, sir. And I can read it out loud if you want." Victor's laugh came quickly, too quickly. "This is absurd," he said. "Arabic contracts use formal style. You are all letting theatrics." "Victor," Ethan interrupted, still calm, but now there was a sharper metal under the calm. "You told us this was boilerplate." Ethan's finger tapped the line Lily indicated, a slow, precise motion. "If she is wrong, you will correct her in front of everyone." The timer blinked 0:05. One of the investors on the screen spoke, voice crisp through the speakers. "Mr. Caldwell, our time is limited." Ethan did not look away from Victor. "Then listen closely," Ethan said. He turned slightly toward Daniel. "Daniel, tell them we need 2 minutes to verify the Arabic clause." Daniel hesitated, then swallowed and nodded, his confidence suddenly fragile. Ethan turned back to Lily. "Read it," he said. Lily took a breath and spoke the sentence in Arabic, each sound clean, each syllable placed like a careful step. The room felt the difference, even if they did not understand the words, the way people can feel a real note versus a wrong one. Victor's posture tightened by an inch. Ethan's eyes stayed on Victor. "Now," Ethan said, "Victor, you read that same line and tell my investors what it means." Victor Sloane's eyes dropped to the line as if it had moved on the page. For a heartbeat he held the same smooth posture, the same expensive calm, but his throat worked once, a small motion that betrayed him more than any words could. "Of course," he said, and the confidence in his tone sounded slightly overpolished, like a chair that creaked after too much wax. He leaned in and began to read, shaping the first syllables carefully, but the sounds came out flat and uncertain, as if he was guessing which direction the language flowed. Daniel Klein shifted in his seat, lips pressed tight, watching Victor like a man watching a rope fray. On the video wall, the investors' faces did not blink. The timer had hit midnight, yet the call had not dropped, as if even the technology wanted to see what would happen next. Victor continued, pushing through the sentence with the urgency of someone trying to outrun a storm. Then he stopped halfway, smiled, and lifted his gaze. "It is a standard authorization," he said quickly. "It simply confirms the intent of partnership, subject to performance." Ethan Caldwell did not move. His eyes stayed on Victor with the stillness of a man who had built an empire by noticing what others rushed past. "Read it again," Ethan said. Victor laughed softly. "Mr. Caldwell, there is no need to embarrass anyone. Arabic is nuanced." "Read it again," Ethan repeated, voice quiet. And in that quiet the room heard a new rule being written. Victor's smile thinned. He looked, back down, tried again. And this time the vowels slipped into the wrong places, the rhythm breaking in a way that made even people who did not know the language feel the wrongness. Lily Harper, standing beside the table, watched him with wide, steady eyes, like someone watching a magician miss a trick he swore he invented. When Victor finished, his cheeks had gained a faint flush that did not match the air-conditioned chill of the room. Ethan turned his head slightly toward Lily. "What did he just say?" he asked. Lily did not gloat. She did not raise her voice. She simply answered, precise as a ruler laid on paper. He changed the timing word, she said. He turned immediate into eventual. And he skipped the part that assigns control. Daniel exhaled sharply through his nose. This is ridiculous, Marissa Cole snapped. But her voice had lost its earlier certainty. It had the thin edge of someone watching a ladder shift under her. On the screen, one investor spoke again, slower now, less impatient and more alert. Mr. Caldwell, the woman said, I speak Arabic. The child is correct. Her name tag read Nadia Albright, and her comm sounded like a door closing. Victor's head turned toward the screen, just a fraction too fast. With respect, Victor said, dialect differences. This is not dialect, Nadia replied. This is legal phrasing. It is clear. Another investor nodded beside her, eyes narrowed. If the Arabic assigns rights today, we cannot proceed, he said. Not on this call. Ethan looked down at the paper again, then at Daniel Klein. Daniel, he said, you approve this. Daniel's throat bobbed. I reviewed the English, Daniel answered, too quickly, and the board members around the table exchanged the kind of glances that do not need words. Ethan's gaze returned to Victor. You told us the Arabic was boilerplate, Ethan said. But you cannot read it, and you cannot translate it, and my investor just confirmed it is a trap. Victor spread his hands, attempting warmth. Mr. Caldwell, you are a smart man. Do not let a misunderstanding cost you a historic expansion. Ethan leaned back a fraction, and the leather chair sighed beneath him. A misunderstanding does not sweat, Ethan said. His eyes flicked to the slight sheen forming at Victor's temples. And it does not dodge simple questions. Grace Harper stood motionless near the wall, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles looked pale, watching her daughter stand in the center of a world that had never planned to make space for her. Lily's heart hammered, but her voice remained steady when she spoke again. Mr. Caldwell, she said, if you want proof in 2 minutes, there is a way. Ethan's eyes turned to her, sharp with focus. Tell me, he said, and Victor Sloane's smile finally slipped, just enough for everyone to see what it had been hiding. Ethan Caldwell did not raise his voice, but the room shifted around it anyway, as if his attention carried weight. Tell me, he said again, eyes fixed on Lily. Lily inhaled slowly, the way she did before a spelling test, before a math contest, before anything that made her mother's hands tremble. There is a translation hotline, Lily said, nodding toward the conference phone in the center of the table. Your company uses it for international calls. I have heard it in the hallway when executives travel. Marissa Cole's chin lifted, offended that a child knew anything about how the building worked. That line is not for Marissa, Ethan said, and she stopped like a light cut off. Lily continued, careful but confident. Put it on speaker. Ask them to translate the clause exactly as written, and ask for the meaning of the timing word and the assignment phrase. It will take less than 2 minutes. Victor Sloane's laugh tried to return, but it came out thinner than before. Mr. Caldwell, you're going to call a hotline because a child is nervous about a foreign font. Ethan turned his head just enough to let Victor see his profile, sharp and still. I'm going to verify before I hand over anything worth $250 million, Ethan said. Then he looked at Marissa. Dial it. Marissa's fingers moved fast on the keypad, nails clicking softly against plastic. Grace Harper stood near the wall, her lips parted as if she wanted to pull Lily back, and also wanted to see what Lily might become if she was allowed to stand here. On the video wall, Nadia Albright folded her hands, calm and watchful, her eyes never leaving the contract. The call connected with a soft tone, and then a steady voice answered, professional and neutral. Caldwell Language Services, the voice said. How may I assist you? Ethan leaned forward slightly. I need a certified verbal translation of one clause in Arabic, he said. Immediate. Daniel Klein's eyes flicked to Victor, then away. Lily pointed to the line again, and she spoke the first few words clearly into the speaker, guiding the translator to the exact sentence, like placing a finger on a map. The voice on the line asked her to repeat one phrase, and Lily did, syllables clean as crystal. Then there was a pause, not long, but long enough for the air conditioning hum to sound louder, for the lemon polish scent to feel sharper, for Victor's breathing to become noticeable. Thank you, the translator said at last. That clause states an irrevocable assignment of rights and operational control, effective immediately upon signature. The room did not gasp. It did something colder than a gasp. It went perfectly quiet. On the screen, one investor's mouth tightened, and another shook his head once, slow and final. Daniel's shoulders sank a fraction, as if something inside him had just been measured and found wanting. Victor's hands lifted, palms out, a performance of innocence. That is a misunderstanding, he said quickly. Legal Arabic sounds severe. The intent is partnership. The translator's voice remained even. The phrasing used is not partnership phrasing, the translator said. It is transfer phrasing. The timing word indicates immediate effect. Ethan sat back, and the leather chair sighed under him like it was relieved he had not signed. His gaze moved from the phone to Victor, then to Daniel, then back to the contract. We are done here, Ethan said quietly. Victor's smile tried to return, but it could not find its place. Lily's chest was tight, yet she did not stop. She leaned closer to Ethan and tapped the bottom margin, where most eyes never lingered. Mr. Caldwell, she said, voice soft but urgent, look at the footer. Your company name is misspelled in Arabic, and the registration number is not yours. That is not an accident. Ethan Caldwell's eyes narrowed at the bottom of the page, as if the contract had just whispered a second secret. He leaned closer, the marble table reflecting the sharp line of his jaw, and traced the Arabic footer with one finger. Lily Harper stood beside him, small hands clasped to keep them from shaking, watching his face the way you watch the sky when you know the weather is turning. Spell it for me, Ethan said, not to Lily, but to the room, as if daring anyone to pretend it did not matter. Lily answered softly, letter by letter, careful and exact. The company name, written with one character wrong, no longer read like Caldwell Petroleum. It read like an imitation trying to pass for the real thing. And that number, Lily added, tapping the registration line, it is not yours. Yours ends with a different sequence. I have seen it on your building permits and vendor forms. Marissa Cole's eyes flicked to Grace Harper like a silent accusation, as if knowledge itself were a form of trespassing. Daniel Klein shifted again, the movement of a man realizing the floor under his argument was thinner than he thought. Victor Sloan forced a chuckle. Mr. Caldwell, with respect, you are letting a child interpret typography. Clerical errors happen when documents are translated. Ethan did not look up. This is not typography, he said. Then he lifted his gaze to the video wall. Nadia, he said, addressing the investor who had spoken Arabic earlier. Did you hear that translation service confirm an immediate transfer? Nadia Albright nodded once. I did, she said. And the footer issue is not minor. These are red flags. Another investor leaned forward. We are pausing, he said, voice controlled but clipped. We will not proceed until verified. Ethan nodded slowly, as if a door inside him had just closed and locked. He turned to Marissa. Call compliance, he said, and call information technology. I want a full verification of the document source, the metadata, and the sending address. Now, Marissa opened her mouth to protest, then caught the look on Ethan's face and swallowed the protest whole. Her fingers moved fast, but her posture had changed. She was no longer managing a meeting. She was taking orders in a room that had changed gravity. Ethan turned to Daniel Klein next. Daniel, he said, you will not speak for this contract again. Sit back. Daniel's lips tightened, and for a second he looked like he might argue. Then he leaned back, hands folding too neatly in front of him. Victor Sloan's smile thinned into something sharp. This is unnecessary, he said. We have partners watching. You are risking trust. Ethan's voice stayed calm. I am protecting it, he replied. Lily felt her mother's breath catch near the wall, felt Grace Harper's fear and pride colliding in the same silence. Lily had not meant to stand in the center of this world, but once you speak the truth in a room built on assumptions, you cannot pretend you are invisible again. Ethan slid the contract away from Victor and pulled his phone closer. Victor, he said, you will remain here until my team confirms what you sent. If it is legitimate, we proceed later. If it is not, this ends. Victor's eyes flashed, and then he softened his face, as if charm could still patch the hole in the story. Mr. Caldwell, you are being dramatic, he said, rising slightly from his chair. I have another meeting. Ethan did not raise his voice. You can take it after we finish, he said. At that moment, the conference room door opened quietly, and a compliance director stepped in, followed by a calm representative from information technology, both holding tablets like shields made of fax. Ethan gestured to the contract. Verify everything, he said. The compliance director's eyes scanned the page, then the footer, then the sender line, and her expression tightened. Mr. Caldwell, she said carefully, the sender domain does not match the partner profile on file. Victor's hand paused mid-gesture, and Lily, watching him like she watched words, noticed something else. A faint mark on the paper, a watermark that did not belong to any legitimate law firm. A tiny emblem she had seen once before on a discarded page in a trash bin outside an executive office. Her stomach dropped, because she remembered exactly where she had seen it, and who had been standing there that night. The compliance director's finger hovered over the sender line as if it might bite. The domain is not the partner domain on file, she repeated, more certain now, and the information technology representative nodded, scrolling through a verification screen that reflected pale blue light across the marble. Victor Sloane's shoulders stiffened. Then he tried to loosen them with a laugh that sounded like it had been practiced for better rooms. Domains are changed during mergers, he said. You are overreacting to a technicality. Ethan Caldwell did not respond to Victor. He watched Lily Harper instead, because Lily had gone very still, the way a person goes still when a memory opens like a door. Lily's eyes had drifted to the bottom corner of the contract, where a faint watermark sat like a ghost behind the text. It was small, almost decorative, the kind of detail powerful people ignored because they assumed paper was harmless. But Lily knew that mark. She had seen it weeks ago on a discarded page lying half-crumpled beside a trash bin outside the executive floor, when her mother's cart squeaked softly down a late hallway and the lights were dimmed to saving mode. Lily remembered the smell of carpet cleaner and the distant click of heels, and she remembered a man's voice saying, "Make sure the Arabic is the part nobody reads." She had not understood the whole sentence back then, only the tone, only the casual certainty, like someone discussing weather. She had looked up and seen Daniel Klein standing near the bin, jacket slung over one arm, phone pressed to his ear, eyes scanning the corridor to make sure no one important was watching. He had glanced down at Lily and Grace as if they were furniture, as if they were air. Then he had walked away without breaking his call. Lily had not told anyone, because who believes a kid from housekeeping? Who risks a mother's job over a feeling? But now the same watermark sat on the table in front of a billionaire, and the same name sat inside the room, breathing too carefully. Lily's throat tightened. She leaned toward Ethan, close enough to smell the clean, expensive cologne that matched the room, and she spoke softly, meant only for him. "I have seen that mark before," she said. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Where?" he asked, voice low. Lily swallowed. "Outside the executive floor," she said. "In the trash. It was on a page like this. And I saw Mr. Klein there." The air changed. It did not explode. It did something quieter and more terrifying. It sharpened. Ethan turned his head toward Daniel Klein, slow and deliberate, like a spotlight sweeping across a stage. Daniel's face held its professional shape, but the color drained at the edges. "Daniel," Ethan said, each syllable clean. "Step away from the table." "Ethan," Daniel began, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. "This is absurd. A child is guessing. We have investors. Step away." Ethan repeated, calm as stone. On the video wall, Nadia Albright watched without blinking. "Marissa." Cole's hand hovered over her tablet, frozen between loyalty and survival. Victor Sloane shifted in his seat, the first real impatience slipping through his polished mask. "Mr. Caldwell," Victor said, standing halfway as if he could simply leave on charm. "This has gone far enough." Ethan lifted a hand, not angry, not loud, just final. "Company security will escort you to a conference room while we confirm identity and documents," he said. There was no threat in it, only procedure, and somehow that made it worse for Victor. The compliance director looked up. "We also have a second issue," she said. "The partner profile shows a different bank routing destination than the one in this contract." The information technology representative added, "And the sending address was created recently, designed to resemble the legitimate domain." Victor's smile vanished completely. "You are making a mistake," he said, but his voice had lost its velvet. Ethan did not even glance at him. He looked at Lily again, and in that look was something Lily had never received from anyone in a room like this: belief. "Lily," Ethan said quietly, "you just saved this company. And now you might have saved me from something inside my own house. Ethan Caldwell turned toward the video wall, his expression steady even as the room trembled beneath the surface. To our partners, he said, measured and clear, I apologize for the interruption. You are watching us do the only responsible thing, verify. I will not ask you to trust a signature more than you trust evidence. Nadia Albright nodded once, calm as ever. Another investor spoke, quieter now, no longer impatient. Proceed with verification, he said. We will remain on the line. Ethan inclined his head and looked to the compliance director. Freeze the transaction, he said. No wires, no authorizations, no changes to routing, effective immediately. The compliance director tapped her tablet with quick precision. Already locked, she replied. Ethan's gaze moved to the information technology representative. Put the document trail on the screen, he said. The representative connected a cable to the conference system, and within seconds the wall display shifted from faces to a clean dashboard of timestamps, sender addresses, and file history. Lily Harper watched the screen like she watched words on paper, searching for the mistake that told the truth. Grace Harper stood near the door with her hands clasped tight, eyes glossy but refusing to spill, as if tears would be a luxury in a room like this. Victor Sloan took a slow step back when the sender details appeared, then tried to recover with a smile that did not reach his eyes. This is unnecessary theater, he said. You are embarrassing your own counsel and delaying a profitable deal. Ethan did not look at Victor. Profit does not matter if it is built on fraud, he replied. And embarrassment is the smallest consequence of betrayal. Daniel Klein cleared his throat, trying to sound offended rather than afraid. Ethan, he said, forcing familiarity. You are letting a child's imagination rewrite reality. I reviewed the contract in good faith. We can correct any language errors with an addendum. Lily's stomach tightened at the way Daniel said child, as if that word could erase everything she had proven. Ethan's eyes met Daniel's, and in that moment the boardroom felt less like a meeting and more like a courtroom. You reviewed the contract, Ethan repeated, slowly. Then explain why the Arabic clause transfers control immediately. Daniel's lips parted, then pressed together. He turned his gaze to the screen, pretending to study the data like a man who belonged there. The information technology representative spoke, voice careful. The email address was created 19 days ago. The display name was configured to mimic the legitimate partner profile. The attachment was generated from a template that matches a document style used internally. The compliance director added, and the approval chain shows the contract was marked cleared under your credentials, Mr. Klein, at 11:14 last night. Daniel's head snapped up. That is impossible, he said. Someone must have used my login. Ethan's voice stayed calm, but it carried a quiet authority that made denial sound childish. Then you will have no problem surrendering your access for investigation, Ethan said. He looked at Marissa Cole. Deactivate Daniel's permissions. Collect his badge and company phone. Marissa hesitated for half a second, the way people do when they realize the rules they enforced for years can change in a breath. Then she nodded and moved. Daniel pushed back his chair, palms raised. Ethan, do not do this in front of everyone, he said. Too fast, too loud. We can discuss privately. Ethan's eyes flicked to the investors still watching, then back to Daniel. The people whose money you tried to redirect are here, he said. The people whose trust you endangered are here. Privacy is a privilege, not a shield. Victor's posture tightened, and he glanced toward the door, measuring distance like a man calculating exits. Two members of company security stepped in, polite and professional, their presence quiet but unmistakable. The compliance director tilted her tablet toward Ethan. The bank routing in the contract points to an account not associated with the partner, she said. It routes through an intermediary, then out. Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked at Lily, and Lily felt something strange. She was still afraid, but she was no longer small. She pointed to a timestamp on the screen, her voice soft but steady. Mr. Caldwell, she said, that is the same time I heard him in the hallway, on the phone, saying the Arabic was the part nobody reads. Daniel's face went pale around the edges, and in that instant the boardroom understood the most dangerous kind of truth. The scam was not outside the glass building. It was already inside. Ethan Caldwell did not slam the table or raise his voice. Yet every person in that boardroom felt the decision settle like a heavy door closing. "Show me the approval chain in plain language," he told the information technology representative, "and show me who touched this file, when, and from where." The screen shifted again, crisp and unforgiving, listing names and timestamps like footprints in fresh snow. The compliance director pointed to a highlighted entry. "The contract template originated from an internal folder," she said, "not from an external partner. It was exported, converted, and then attached to the message that came from the imitation domain." Daniel Klein's face tightened into a professional smile that could not hide the tremor at its edges. "Internal folders can be accessed if credentials are compromised," he insisted. "You are drawing conclusions based on an assumption." Ethan looked at him steadily. "Then we will test your theory," Ethan said. He nodded to Marissa Cole. "Ask him for his phone and badge. Not as punishment, as preservation." Marissa hesitated, then stepped forward with a careful politeness that sounded newly learned. "Mr. Klein, please hand them over," she said. Daniel's hands hovered near his jacket pockets, then stopped, as if his body could not decide whether to cooperate or run from the truth. Across the table, Victor Sloan tried to reclaim the room with charm. "Mr. Caldwell, you are a visionary," he said, voice warm, palms open. "Do not let internal politics ruin an international opportunity. If the wording is wrong, we correct it. If routing is wrong, we fix it. This is business." Ethan did not look at Victor. "This is theft dressed as business," he replied. On the video wall, Nadia Albright spoke softly, but her words carried. "We will not proceed with any partner who cannot guarantee integrity," she said. "And we will not proceed with any company that ignores red flags after they are raised." Ethan nodded once, acknowledging her, then turned back to the information technology display. "Open the message header," he said. "Show the originating address and the forwarding path." The representative tapped, and the screen revealed the hidden trail. Grace Harper's breath caught near the door, her fingers twisting together. Lily Harper stood beside Ethan, small shoulders squared, eyes locked on the glowing evidence. She saw it before anyone else did, because she had trained her mind to notice what people meant to overlook. There, buried in the forwarding path, was a name fragment that matched a company directory style, not an outside firm. Lily's voice came out quietly, but clear. "That looks like an internal alias," she said. "Like the ones on the executive floor." The compliance director leaned closer, then nodded. "She is right," she said. "That alias belongs to a private distribution list used by legal leadership." Daniel's smile finally cracked. "This is insane," he said, a little louder than necessary. "You are letting a child interpret technology now." Ethan's eyes did not harden, they cooled. "I am letting the truth speak in whatever voice it arrives," Ethan said. Today it arrived in hers. He turned to Daniel. "If your credentials were stolen, you will welcome an investigation," Ethan continued. "You will surrender access, you will cooperate, and you will stop talking as if the problem is a 12-year-old girl instead of a $250 million trap." Daniel's jaw worked, searching for the right argument, but the room had moved beyond arguments. Victor shifted his weight, glancing toward the door again, and one security officer stepped slightly closer, not threatening, just present. The information technology representative pointed to another entry on the screen. "There is more," he said. "A message draft saved under Mr. Klein's account. Created last night, addressed to Mr. Sloan, with the attachment linked." Ethan leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Open it," he said, and Lily felt the air turn colder, because she knew whatever appeared next would not just expose a scam. It would expose who had been holding the knife by the handle inside the glass castle all along. The information technology representative tapped once, and the screen filled with a clean email draft stamped with last night's timestamp, sitting under Daniel Klein's account like a confession that had been waiting for daylight. The subject line read, "Updated Arabic clause for signature window." Beneath it, the message was addressed to Victor Sloan by name. No disguise, no corporate polish, just the blunt mechanics of a plan. Ethan Caldwell's eyes did not blink as he read, and the room seemed to lean with him. Every board member, every investor on the wall, even Marissa Cole's tablet lowering an inch as if her hands no longer knew what to do. Daniel's face tightened into a smile that tried to look amused, but the smile had nowhere to land. The message began with a sentence that sounded exactly like Daniel in meetings, the same crisp, superior cadence. As discussed, the English remains partnership language for comfort, and the Arabic carries the immediate assignment language to ensure control transfers upon signature. Then came a second line, colder because it was practical. The routing details in the appendix will direct funds through the intermediary, then onward. Please confirm your team will present it as boilerplate and keep the call moving. There was even a final note, almost casual. I will mark it cleared at 11:14, so it lands first thing in the morning. Ethan's gaze lifted slowly from the screen to Daniel, and the silence that followed was not empty. It was packed tight with consequence. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed, like a man trying to swallow smoke. This is fabricated, Daniel said at last, voice strained, louder than it needed to be. Someone used my account. This is a setup. Victor Sloane's eyes flicked to the door again, then back to Ethan, and his charm tried one last time to stand upright. Mr. Caldwell, Victor said, palms open. A draft does not prove intent. People write hypotheticals. We can resolve this without truth. Ethan interrupted, and the quiet in his voice made the interruption feel like a verdict. He nodded toward the screen. That draft references the exact timestamp your clearance hit the system, Ethan said. It references the routing change that compliance just flagged. It references the strategy of hiding the transfer in Arabic, the part nobody reads. Ethan's eyes slid to Lily Harper, and then back to Daniel. Except she read it, Ethan said. Lily stood very still, cheeks warm, heart loud, yet her presence felt steady now, like the one clean pillar in a room full of shifting stories. On the video wall, Nadia Albright spoke with calm finality. This is sufficient for us to pause and report, she said. We will not proceed, and we will document this call. Another investor nodded. Mr. Caldwell handled this responsibly, he added. The deal is suspended, but your integrity is not. Daniel's hands lifted, trembling at the edges of his tailored sleeves. Ethan, please, he said, dropping formality like a man dropping weight. We can talk. Privately. There are details you do not understand. Ethan did not flinch. There are details I understand perfectly, he replied. He looked at the compliance director. Initiate an internal fraud investigation, he said. Preserve all accounts, devices, and logs. Notify our auditors. Notify the appropriate authorities. Quietly, correctly, and immediately. Then he turned to security, his tone still professional, still controlled. Please escort Mr. Klein and Mr. Sloane to separate conference rooms, he said. They will wait there while we document everything. Victor's face tightened, and for a moment his practiced confidence slipped into something raw and annoyed. Daniel's knees seemed to lock, as if he had forgotten how to stand without status holding him up. Marissa stepped aside to let security pass, her expression stunned, as though she had spent years guarding the wrong door. Ethan waited until Daniel and Victor were guided out, then turned back to the screen of investors. Thank you for staying, he said. You just witnessed a company choose proof over pride. And then, as the call remained connected and the boardroom air began to thaw, Ethan looked down at Lily with a seriousness that felt almost gentle. Lily, he said quietly, tell me everything you remember from that hallway. Every word, every detail, because you just became the witness my own walls could not produce. Ethan Caldwell ended the investor call with the same steady courtesy he used to end. Wars of numbers. But when the screen went dark, the room did not feel empty. It felt newly exposed, like a chandelier had been turned off, and everyone could finally see the dust. The marble table still held the contract like a fallen crown, and the lemon polish scent that once felt clean now felt sharp, like it had been trying to cover something. Everyone who is not essential. Out, Ethan said calmly, and the board members moved without arguing, chairs whispering against the floor as they filed away with faces tight and thoughtful. Marissa Cole lingered near the door, her pride rearranging itself into something quieter, and then she left too, closing the glass behind her with careful hands. Only Ethan, the compliance director, the information technology representative, Grace Harper, and Lily Harper remained. Grace stood with her shoulders pulled in, as if she expected the ceiling to blame her for what her daughter had done. Lily stood beside her, small and pale under the conference lights, curls slightly frizzed from nervous fingers, eyes still locked on the contract, as if it might change again. Ethan looked at Grace first. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper," he began, then corrected himself immediately, respectful and precise. "Miss Harper," he said to Grace, "you are not in trouble. You are safe here. Your job is safe. Your dignity is safe. Do you understand me?" Grace's throat worked. "Yes, sir," she managed, and the words sounded like relief, trying not to cry. Ethan nodded once, then pulled a chair back for Lily, not as a gesture for show, but as if he could not tolerate the idea of her standing another second in a room that had been unkind to her. "Sit," he told her gently. Lily sat at the edge of the leather chair, feet not touching the floor, hands folded tight in her lap to keep them from shaking. Ethan placed a glass of water in front of her, the clink soft against marble, and then he sat across from her without the pen, without the signature, without the armor of a meeting. "Lily," he said, "tell me everything you remember from that hallway. Not what you think it meant, just what you heard and what you saw." Lily swallowed, eyes flicking to her mother for permission, and Grace nodded, a small trembling nod that said, "Speak, even if it changes everything." Lily took a breath. "It was late," she began, voice quiet but clear. "The executive floor lights were dim, like evening mode. My mom was pushing the cart, and the wheels squeaked once near the corner. I smelled carpet cleaner, and the air felt cold. I saw Mr. Klein near the trash bin outside the big conference room. He had his phone at his ear. He was talking fast." Ethan did not interrupt. The compliance director opened a note screen, fingers poised. Lily continued, and as she spoke, her words became steadier, like a line being drawn with a ruler. He said, "Make sure the Arabic is the part nobody reads." He said it like it was a joke, like it was easy. Then he looked down at us for a second, like we were not supposed to be there. He did not stop talking. He walked away. Lily hesitated, then added, "The page in the trash had that faint mark, the watermark. I remember because it looked like a tiny emblem under the ink." Ethan's jaw tightened, not with anger at her, but with the kind of quiet fury that comes when betrayal is finally named. "You remembered the time?" he asked. Lily nodded. "Yes, sir. The wall clock near the elevators said 11:15. I remember because I was thinking it was late for a school night." The information technology representative looked up. "The clearance was at 11:14, he said softly, more to himself than to anyone. Ethan's eyes stayed on Lily. "You did the right thing today," he said. "You did a brave thing. And I am sorry you ever had to be brave in this building." Lily's fingers loosened around each other for the first time. Grace's eyes filled, but she blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall on a floor that had never earned them. Ethan leaned back slightly, exhaling through his nose as if the weight of the morning had finally found a place to rest. "All right," he said, voice steady again, purposeful. "We document your statement. We preserve every record. And then we make sure no one like Victor Sloan ever gets close to our signature again. Starting now, we do not treat details as decorations. We treat them as doors. And we stop letting the wrong people hold the keys." By the time Lily finished her statement, the sun had shifted across the glass tower outside, turning the city into a grid of bright lines and shadowed streets. The compliance director read Lily's words back slowly, making sure every detail was accurate, then asked Lily to initial the bottom of the page. Lily held the pen with careful fingers, her curls falling forward as she wrote, and Ethan Caldwell watched the motion like it mattered as much as any signature he had almost given away. When it was done, Ethan stood and pushed the contract farther down the table as if he did not want it near her anymore. "You should both go home," he said to Grace Harper, and his tone was not dismissive, it was protective. Grace's shoulders tensed automatically. "Sir, I can finish my shift," she said, because that was what people like her had been trained to say, even when their hands were shaking. Ethan shook his head once. "Today your shift is to be safe," he replied. He walked them out himself, past the silent boardroom, past the polished hallways that had always made Grace feel like her footsteps were too loud. People stepped aside as Ethan passed, not because he demanded it, but because the building knew his gravity, and for the first time that gravity was carrying Grace and Lily with it instead of pushing them away. In the elevator, Grace stared at the glowing numbers as they descended, afraid that the moment would fade as soon as the doors opened. Lily kept her eyes forward, still replaying Arabic words in her mind like they were lines of a song, she had finally sung out loud. When the doors opened in the lobby, Ethan stopped beside the reception desk and turned to Marissa Cole, who had followed at a careful distance. "Marissa," he said, "effective immediately, housekeeping has full access to the staff entrance reserved for executives. No more separate doors. No more separate elevators. We do not divide people by job titles in my building." Marissa's expression tightened with surprise, then softened into something like understanding. "Yes, sir," she said, and it sounded different than before. Ethan then looked at Grace. "Your employment status is protected," he said plainly. "No retaliation, no schedule cuts, no whispers. If anyone tries, they answer to me." Grace's eyes filled despite her best effort. "Thank you," she whispered, and Lily felt her mother's hand squeeze hers, not with fear this time, but with relief. Ethan knelt slightly, so he was closer to Lily's height, not to perform kindness, but to meet her where she was. "You have a gift," he said. "Not just language. You have attention. You notice what others ignore." Lily swallowed. "I just read it," she said, as if shrinking back into simplicity could make the moment less frightening. Ethan gave a small, steady smile. "Most people do not read what they sign," he replied. "You did. That is courage with a quiet voice." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a clean business card, then wrote a number on the back with careful strokes. "This is my direct line," he said to Grace, then looked at Lily again. "And this is an invitation, Lily. If you want it, we will pay for your language programs, your tutoring, whatever you need. No strings, no cameras, no speeches, just support." Lily blinked, unsure how to accept something without owing her soul in return. Ethan stood, straightening his suit as if resetting himself. "I am not buying gratitude," he said, as if he could read the worry on her face. "I am correcting a blind spot." As they stepped outside, the afternoon air felt warmer than the building's cold perfection, and Grace breathed like a woman surfacing after holding her breath for years. Behind them, inside the glass tower, screens lit up with new tasks: audits, access reviews, compliance locks, and a message from Ethan to every department head with one simple line at the top: "We will never again confuse silence for ignorance." Lily looked up at her mother, then at the tall building, and for the first time she did not see it as a place where she had to disappear. She saw it as a place that had finally been forced to see her back. In the weeks that followed, the Caldwell Petroleum Tower felt different, not because the marble changed or the glass softened, but because the people inside it began to move as if they could finally see one another. The investigation did not happen with shouting or spectacle. It happened with quiet emails, secured logs, and meetings where facts were treated like gravity. Daniel Klein's access never returned, and the legal department learned, one uncomfortable lesson at a time, that credentials were not character. Victor Sloan's partnership team vanished. The moment the paper trail tightened, because scams that depend on speed rarely survive daylight. Ethan Caldwell did not talk about revenge, and he did not let anyone turn a near disaster into office gossip. He simply insisted on a new standard. Every document was verified in every language it carried, every routing number confirmed twice, every approval logged with a second set of eyes. The day the new policy rolled out, the message was short and unmistakable. No one in this company would ever again hide a trap inside a translation and call it boilerplate. Grace Harper returned to work expecting whispers, but instead she found a printed badge waiting at reception with her name spelled correctly and an updated title beneath it: Facilities Operations Coordinator. It was not a trophy, it was a door opening, a signal that her years of invisible competence had finally been counted as real. The staff entrance reserved for executives was no longer reserved, and the separate elevator sign came down without a ceremony, as if it had always been ridiculous. Lily Harper did not become famous inside the building, because Ethan refused to turn a child's courage into a headline. What she received instead was quieter and better: a weekly tutoring schedule with a language instructor, a scholarship fund set up in her name that did not require speeches, and access to the company library that used to be treated like a private lounge. On her first afternoon in the tutoring room, Lily sat at a table with a stack of books that smelled like fresh paper and possibility, and for the first time she did not feel like she was borrowing someone else's world. Ethan checked in once, not hovering, just present. "How is it going?" he asked. Lily looked up, curls falling into her eyes, and she answered honestly. It is hard, she said. Ethan nodded, as if hard was the most respectable thing in the room. Good, he replied. Hard means you are growing. One evening, as Grace and Lily walked past the lobby, Lily paused in front of the building directory where names were listed in clean lettering. She found her mother's name on a new line, and her own name on a visitor badge that did not say housekeeping, did not say guest, did not say anything that shrank her. It simply said Lily Harper, and underneath, student. Grace's hand tightened around Lily's, not out of fear now, but out of gratitude so deep it felt almost heavy. Outside, the city kept rushing, horns and headlights and hurried lives. But inside the glass tower something important had slowed down enough to notice the smallest voice that had spoken the sharpest truth. And if you listened closely, you could hear the lesson lingering in the clean, bright air. Respect is not a reward for wealth. It is a recognition of humanity. And sometimes the people you overlook are the ones who keep your entire world from slipping into someone else's hands.